Hello there, my name's Brandon, and I make pictures out of tiny squares and post them online for fun. They call it pixel art though, and it seems to be an accepted thing, so that's just what I'm going with. In today's video, I have a time lapse of one of the pieces that I made. This one is called Gameboy City. This actually comes as inspiration from my previous video, the What Size is Pixel Art video, and in that one I suggest to people, if you're just starting with pixel art, to take inspiration from classic game consoles, maybe like with a high level of restriction like the Game Boy, which had a canvas size of 160 by 144 and only used 4 shades of color. And I realized, despite having done a lot of stuff with certain restrictions in place, I never actually attempted anything with that specific level of restriction. With the Game Boy Challenge, I guess, I don't know. So that was my inspiration for this piece, and I decided, since it came out of the Game Boy itself, I would go ahead and make a very Game Boy heavy inspired piece, where the architecture of the city was Game Boy inspired, and it had little references throughout the city. So the first thing that I did though was laid out sort of where the ground was going to be, and then put in like a background cityscape that I knew I wanted to be near the top of the piece. I didn't want to have like buildings and stuff in the foreground covering that up, so I put the background in first, just so I knew what height I would need to make everything in the midground. Then I come down to the making the character itself, the little Game Boy character, and this was a bit of an exercise in finding the right sizing. I figured the best thing to do with this, as with doing a lot of small sprites, is you kind of have to pick the smallest detail that you want to be communicated really well. In the case of like a little Game Boy character, that would of course be his buttons and the D-pad. I want it to be very visible. So I assigned those a size of 1 pixel, one for each, like the button is 1 pixel large, and then the D-pad is just a 1 pixel width as a plus sign, right? And then from there, everything else just sort of falls into place. Like I pick a good size screen to be his face, and good sizing to put like a smiley face and 2 eyes in it, just to have him have like sort of a friendly look. The thing about the sprite sizing too is, like, if the Game Boy character were any larger, we'd also have to scale up the size of like the buildings and stuff that's going to be around him. So I did want to keep him smaller so that we could see more of the environment around him, since this was supposed to focus on the city as well as like the little characters too. Plus he's got sort of like a cute look to him, I guess. And if he were a larger sprite, it might mean that I'd have to put in more details or like more sort of advanced shading, and we don't really need like the gritty reboot of the Game Boy City. Coming back to the skyline, I decided to fill it out with different sorts of textures, so I did like a dithered like checkerboard pattern for some of the other buildings that might be even further away or just have like a different sort of look to them. I realized I could maybe give it more of a Super Mario reference by putting some faces on things. I think that's something that they do. Put some Tetris in the sky, because that's like, I guess where Tetris could be in here. Hopefully that's not like, if that was rain, that might be like a severe weather event for the people living here, but hopefully it's just like a, you know, a friendly level of Tetris going on in the sky at all times. I bring in my sort of monkey avatar character, and this is the first time that I had to make him into a character. So like when I designed him, he's just a head, and that's what I use for my logo and everything. And he's never had a body, so I thought it'd be cool to make him into an actual proper character. When I start adding stuff to the midground, I started with this building here that's going to be like, it was sort of inspired just by the simple architecture that you see in the Pokemon game. A lot of times I'll lay in shapes, like the doorway here, just as like a flat, you know, square, and then carve out the edges of it to find the right angle if you're doing like a curved look. I find that a little bit easier to carve stuff out of a square than to try to build it up from nothing, if that makes sense. When I was making this too, I knew that I was also going to animate it at the end. I don't have time lapse of the animation because actually doing the screen cap here was like slowing down my machine, so it was kind of hard to draw actually, because I'd zoom in and it would be a little bit laggy. But anyway, I wasn't able to record time lapse of the animation. The other thing that was kind of fun with this is that it's actually the first time that I've done a proper screen cap like time lapse. I've posted things before where they're sort of process shots or little animated series of layers of when I'm making a character. But this was the first time that I was like recording my screen and knew that it was going to be a video and that kind of thing. And it puts a little bit of a weird pressure on you, because you feel like everyone's watching it while you're doing it, even though it's literally just me by myself. But you guys are here now, and you were kind of with me when I did it. You just didn't know it yet. Is that weird? I think that is weird. But because of that sort of artificial pressure, I just decided to go with like my first instincts on a lot of stuff and like not try to put a lot of my pressure on myself. So it was mostly just like almost a stream of consciousness kind of thing, where it's just like first decisions, trying to find like whatever the first thing that I thought of was, just go with those ideas, and then kind of you can smooth things out after. But it ended up being a really relaxing way to work. I usually put a lot of like decision and I wouldn't say like, I don't want to say like perfectionism, but intent. Usually have a lot of intent and thought into what I'm making. But with this one, it was just sort of like, you know, if I design a sign, like, oh, what are we going to put on it? Let's just do a map. Okay, what does the map look like? Doesn't matter. Just put some islands in it and it'll work itself out. And I think that worked out really well. It helped me get through this piece probably a lot faster than I would have. And I'm just as happy with the result as anything else that I've done. Using these Game Boy parameters was a lot of fun though. Like, it takes a lot of pressure off just having the colors decided for you. And in fact, like the contrast from them, you just have like the two midtones and then the black and the white. So you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about what color things are going to be, because you just pull from a palette of 4. You know, your choices are really narrowed down. So what it comes down to, I guess, a lot is like sizing and then the level of rendering that you get out of those 4 colors. So for mine, I leaned more towards like a simpler kind of look. You could do more detailing if you wanted to like shade each piece using all 4 colors, but I just stuck to like 1 or 2. Kept it very clean looking. I thought that would like suited the kind of art. So at this point, most of the midground elements are in place, and you can see I've kept it relatively simple. That's just going to be because there's the characters in the foreground that we want to have most of the attention drawn to. And you'll also see I brought back in sort of one of the earlier iterations of when I was designing the sprite size for the Game Boy character. And so the one that I copied over is actually the smaller version of that I had scrapped originally, but I thought I'd bring them back in just to have like different sizes of these Game Boy characters. So maybe the one holding the balloons is like a child-sized Game Boy, or I guess Game Boy's already like meant for children, so I don't know what that makes him. Or he'd be a Game Boy Pocket. There we go. That's a real thing, actually. So that's what he is. He's a Game Boy Pocket. I don't know if they're actually that much smaller than the regular one, but that's what I'm going to call him. So once I've got the main structure of everything blocked out, I'll go through and do a round where I just hit it with additional details. Usually I lean towards like sort of sci-fi or tech kind of things. So you'll see a lot of stuff that I just put like random antennae on, or wires or paneling or blinking lights, that sort of thing. That's just kind of what I'm into. And I think it just helps give it some visual interest. And it helps if it looks like it has some sort of intent, like if you have wires going somewhere or something like that. And then as I was sort of getting towards the end of the piece, I just decided to hit it with as many references as I could think of off the top of my head, Gameboy references. So you can see like I've got on those 2 poles, there's like a cable connecting them. I thought that could be kind of like the connection cable when you're connecting 2 Game Boys or something. It probably doesn't look like that. I should have actually researched like what the cable lens looked like, but I just put some cables in there and that was fine. I also tucked in like some different textures, like the wavy texture was sort of like something you might see in Super Mario games. I added a cartridge and the word carts to the store here. It's like, I guess that's what they sell. I don't know if these Game Boy people would buy cartridges to put in themselves. Does that make sense? Like, would that be like their food, or it would just be like their mood for the day? Like you'd pop in like a happy cart, I guess, all the time. Either way, they can buy their own cartridges and put them in their body. So that's cool. And then the little waterfall at the bottom, or the pipe with water, I knew I wanted to animate like a little waterfall coming out of the pipe. That one was for me, so I just threw that in there as if it was part of the sidewalk structure or something. I don't know. I just wanted some water, running water in there. Making text, one of the things that I do is I'll block out what each of the letters will be just as like a square, and then I actually erase from that square to create the letter rather than building the letter up from nothing. I find it easier to work out the kerning, like the spacing of the letters, when you just start from what space it's going to take up as a square, and then you can kind of erase it to get to the actual shape of the letter itself. You could probably do another way, but that's my preferred method. So we're getting towards the end here. Thank you for watching, and I think what I'll do is just throw up the animated version of this. Like not vomit it up, but like put it on the screen. I mean, I'll display it for you. I'll switch to the animated version. But before that, I just wanted to say like that this was kind of a blast to put together. I had never done anything with this exact set of parameters. and it was a lot of fun. So I'd really recommend this exercise to kind of any level of pixel artist. So once again, this was the Game Boy canvas size of 160 by 144 pixels, and then it's just 4 shades of color. So there's like a black, a white, and then kind of 2 midtones. So thanks again for watching, and as always, take care and keep it square. I'm so lame, but that's cool. That's all good.